She walked in on her husband's promotion party, but realized it was actually his wedding. Part 5. Elena's fingers trembled as she turned the deadbolt. The click of the lock releasing sounded unnaturally loud in the tense silence of the safe house. Behind her, Vincent kept his gun trained on the door while David positioned himself to pull Elena back if necessary. The door swung open to reveal a woman who looked nothing like Elena expected. Victoria Sterling stood in the hallway, her designer heels clicking against the warm carpet as she stepped forward without waiting for an invitation. She was in her mid-40s, with sharp cheekbones and ice-blonde hair pulled into a sleek chignon. Her navy blue pantsuit probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent, and the diamond studs in her ears caught the light as she tilted her head. "You must be Elena," Victoria said, her voice smooth as bourbon. "I've heard so much about you." Elena's throat tightened. Up close, Victoria's beauty had a predatory edge, the kind of polished perfection that made Elena hyper-aware of her own messy bun and the sweat stains under her arms from the stress of the evening. Vincent stepped forward, his gun still raised. "That's far enough." Victoria's crimson lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her cold gray eyes. "Vincent Chen, I wondered if you'd be here. Still playing detective after all these years." "You killed my sister," Vincent said, his voice trembling with rage. "Did I?" Victoria arched her perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Prove it." Elena watched the exchange with growing unease. There was history here, personal history, that went beyond the network's crimes. She forced herself to speak. "What do you want, Victoria?" Victoria's gaze flicked back to Elena, assessing her like a jeweler evaluating a flawed diamond. "You must be Elena," Victoria said with a smile. Victoria's gaze flicked back to Elena, assessing her like a jeweler evaluating a flawed diamond. "I want to make you an offer. May I sit?" She gestured to the rickety kitchen chair without waiting for an invitation. David moved closer to Elena, his hand finding hers. His palm was damp with sweat, but his grip was firm. "Whatever she's selling, we're not buying," he muttered. Victoria heard him and laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, David, isn't it? The devoted boyfriend. How quaint." She crossed her legs, revealing designer stilettos that looked absurd in the shabby safe house. "Elena, you've caused quite a disruption to my business. Marcus is furious, by the way. He didn't appreciate your little performance tonight." Elena's stomach twisted, so he had recognized her. Then why didn't he say anything? "Because I told him not to." Victoria reached into her purse, and Vincent tensed, but she only pulled out a silver cigarette case. "Mind if I smoke?" "No." "Lovely." She lit a slender cigarette with a gold lighter, exhaling a stream of smoke toward the water-stained ceiling. "Marcus wanted to deal with you immediately after the restaurant, but I convinced him to let me handle this. You see, Elena, I admire you." Elena barked out a disbelieving laugh. "You admire me?" "Of course." Victoria tapped ash into a chipped saucer on the table. "You're resourceful, persistent. You took what Marcus did to you and turned it into a crusade. Those are qualities I value." Vincent's gun didn't waver. "Get to the point." "The point is, I'm offering Elena a job." Silence crashed over the room. Elena felt David's grip tighten painfully on her hand. "A job," Elena repeated, certain she'd misheard. Victoria smiled. "With the network, you'd be perfect for recruiting. You have the medical background we look for in certain targets. You're intelligent, and you clearly understand how the game is played." Elena's vision swam with red. This woman thought she would join the organization that had destroyed her life, that killed Margaret, that was still preying on vulnerable women right now? "You're insane," Elena spat. Victoria sighed, as if Elena were a disappointing student. "I'm pragmatic. You have two choices, Elena. Join us, or—" She let the sentence hang, taking another leisurely drag from her cigarette. "Or what?" David demanded. "Or suffer the consequences." Victoria's gaze locked onto Elena's. "You think you're safe because you have Vincent and his little gun. You're not. The network has resources you can't imagine. We have people in law enforcement, in the courts, in the very government agencies that are supposed to protect you. Elena's mouth went dry. Was that true, or was it another manipulation? She glanced at Vincent, whose grim expression suggested he believed the threat. Victoria stood up, smoothing her pantsuit. I'll give you 24 hours to decide. Meet me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. at the old textile factory on 12th Street. Come alone, and we'll discuss your future with the network. Vincent stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. Victoria smirked. Then she'll spend the rest of her very short life looking over her shoulder. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Elena, if you go to the police, if you try to run, if you do anything other than exactly what I've told you, David here will have a tragic accident. Such a shame when promising doctors overdose, don't you think? David paled. Elena's knees threatened to buckle. Victoria's heels clicked down the hallway, her perfume lingering like a toxic cloud long after she'd gone. The moment the door closed, Vincent checked the people, then secured all 3 locks. They'll have the building watched. We can't stay here long. Elena sank onto the couch, her legs no longer able to support them. She threatened David. She knows who he is. David sat beside her, rubbing her back in slow circles. We'll figure this out. We'll go to the police. No, Vincent shook his head. If Victoria wasn't lying about their connections, going to the police could be signing David's death warrant. Elena pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to think through the panic. Then what do we do? I can't join them. I won't. Vincent paced the small room, his gun still in hand. There's another option. We take them down ourselves. How? David asked. They clearly have more resources, more people. But we have something they don't, Vincent said, stopping mid-stride. We have Elena. Elena looked up. What do you mean? Vincent's eyes gleamed with a fierce light. You pretend to take the job, you get in, and while you're there, you find the evidence we need to destroy them once and for all. David shot to his feet. Are you insane? They'll kill her. But not if she's valuable to them, Vincent countered. Victoria wouldn't have made the offer if she didn't see potential in Elena. The network is always looking for talented recruiters. Elena's vision swam with red. The idea of walking into the lion's den terrified her. But what other choice did they have? Running wasn't an option, not with David's life on the line. Going to the authorities might be useless if the network had infiltrated them. I'll do it, she said, the words tasting like ash. David whirled on her. Elena, no. It's the only way. If I can get evidence from inside, real evidence that can't be ignored, maybe we can take them down without getting killed in the process. Vincent nodded. I'll wire you. We'll record everything, and I'll have backup standing by. David ran a hand through his hair, making it stand on end. This is madness. There has to be another way. Elena cupped her face in his hands. If you think of one in the next 24 hours, I'm all ears. But right now, this is our best shot. The anguish in David's eyes nearly broke her, but he didn't argue further. Instead, he pulled her into a crushing embrace. If you're doing this, we're doing it right. No unnecessary risks. Elena nodded against his shoulder, but we all knew the truth. Every step she took from this moment forward would be a risk. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Vincent outfitted Elena with a nearly invisible earpiece and a recording device sewn into the lining of her jacket. He drilled her on what to say, how to act, what to look for once she was inside the network's headquarters. Focus on finding their client list, Vincent instructed as they sat around the safe house's kitchen table. Names, locations, financial records. The more concrete evidence we have, the harder it will be for their connections to protect them. David, who had been mostly silent since Elena made her decision, suddenly spoke up. What about the third leader, the one we don't know? Vincent's expression darkened. If Elena can identify them, that would be ideal, but her primary goal is survival. Get in, get evidence, get out. Elena nodded, though her stomach churned at the thought of it. She'd spent the night researching Victoria Sterling, learning everything she could about the woman who had built an empire on broken hearts. She had started as a con artist in her 20s, graduating from small-time scams to the sophisticated network operations she ran today. She was ruthless, brilliant, and, according to the few law enforcement sources willing to speak anonymously, completely without remorse. As evening approached, she dressed carefully in the outfit Vincent had procured, a sleek black pantsuit that mirrored Victoria's style without being an obvious copy. The jacket hid the recording device, while her hair, styled in a loose updo, concealed the earpiece. "You look the part," Vincent said approvingly as she emerged from the bathroom. David said nothing, his jaw clenched so tightly Elena could see the muscle twitching. Vincent handed Elena a small pill, adrenaline capsule. If you're in trouble, bite down on it. It will give you a burst of energy and focus. Elena pocketed the pill, her mouth too dry to swallow anything at the moment. David finally spoke. "If anything feels wrong, you get out. Promise me." "I promise." Elena reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly.
Vincent checked his watch. "Time to go. Remember, we'll be listening the whole time. If you need extraction, say the word Magnolia." Elena took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked out the door before she could change her mind. The old textile factory on 12th Street loomed against the twilight sky, its broken windows like missing teeth in a gaping mouth. Elena's heels clicked against the cracked pavement as she approached, each step sending a jolt of fear up her spine. A hulking man in a dark suit stood by the entrance. He said nothing as Elena approached, merely opened the door and gestured for her to enter. Inside, the factory had been transformed. The cavernous space was now a sleek office with glass-walled conference rooms and a bustling open floor plan where attractive young men and women worked at computers. It looked like any other startup, except for the armed guards stationed at every exit. Victoria emerged from a glass office, her smile razor-sharp. "Elena, so glad you could join us." She gestured to the space around them. "Welcome to the heart of the network." Elena forced herself to smile. "Impressive? Isn't it?" Victoria led her through the workspace where employees barely glanced up from their screens. "We run a tight operation here. Recruitment, training, target acquisition, all under one roof." Elena noted the banks of monitors displaying dating app interfaces, social media profiles, and what looked like financial records. "How many people work here?" 50 in this location, Victoria said proudly. "We have smaller hubs in 6 other cities, but this is our flagship." They reached a glass-walled conference room where Marcus, or rather Robert Kim, sat waiting. He looked up as they entered, his expression unreadable. "Robert," Victoria said smoothly, "Elena has decided to join us." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Has she?" Elena met his gaze without flinching. "I have. It seems we have similar talents." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. "And what makes you think we can trust you?" "Because I'm smart enough to know when I'm outmatched," Elena said, repeating the line Vincent had coached her on. "And because I'd rather be on the winning side." Victoria laughed, a sound like shattering crystal. "I like her, Robert. She's pragmatic." She turned to Elena. "Before we formalize your position, there's someone you should meet." Elena's pulse spiked. The third leader? Victoria pressed a button on the conference table. "Send him in." The door opened and Elena turned, only to freeze in shock as David walked in. No, not David. It couldn't be. But there he stood, his familiar face arranged in a cold smile she'd never seen before. "Hello, Elena," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "Surprise." Elena's world tilted on its axis. The recording device in her jacket felt suddenly like a lead weight. The earpiece in her ear buzzed with Vincent's frantic whispers, but she couldn't make out the words over the roaring in her ears. David, no, not David, whoever this imposter was, stepped closer. "You didn't really think a handsome young doctor would fall for a struggling nurse, did you?" He laughed, and the sound was all wrong, too sharp, too cruel. Victoria beamed. "David here is one of our best operatives. When we realized you were working with Vincent, we decided to monitor you closely. And what better way than through a romantic connection?" Elena's stomach heaved. All those tender moments, the whispered confessions, the promises of safety, all lies, just like Marcus, just like everything. She forced herself to breathe, to think. Vincent was still listening, if she could just keep it together long enough to get evidence. "I'm impressed," Elena managed to say, though the words tasted like poison. "You played me perfectly." David, no, not David, never David, smirked. "It's what I do." Victoria clapped her hands together. "Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's discuss your role. With your medical background, you'd be perfect for targeting healthcare professionals. They trust their own, you see." Elena nodded numbly as Victoria outlined her potential duties, but her mind was elsewhere. The real David was in danger. Vincent was in danger. She had to warn them. "And of course you'll start with a probationary period," Victoria was saying. "Robert will be your supervisor." Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Looking forward to working together again." Elena forced a smile. "Likewise." Victoria stood. "Excellent. Now let me show you to your office. We can discuss your first assignment." As Elena followed Victoria through the bustling workspace, her eyes darted across monitors, memorizing names, faces, any detail that might help bring this operation down. The recording device was capturing everything, but she needed more, something irrefutable. They reached a small office with Elena's name already on the door. Inside, a computer sat waiting. "All the tools you'll need," Victoria said. "Take some time to familiarize yourself with our systems. Robert will check in on you shortly." With that, she left, closing the door behind her. Elena sank into the chair, her hands shaking. The earpiece crackled to life. "Elena? Elena, can you hear me?" Vincent's voice was frantic. She risked a whisper. "David's one of them. It was all a setup." A pause. Then, "I know. I saw him enter the building. Elena, you need to get out of there now." "How? They're watching every exit." Vincent's voice turned grim. "Then we do this the hard way. I'm coming in." Before Elena could respond, the office door opened. She turned and found herself face to face with Marcus. He closed the door quietly behind him. "We need to talk." Elena's hand drifted toward the adrenaline pill in her pocket. "About what?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "About the fact that you're wearing a wire." Elena's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're—" "Save it." Marcus's eyes darted to the door, then back to her. "Victoria knows. She's testing you. They're going to search you any minute now." Elena's mind raced. Was this another trick? Another layer of the game? "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. Marcus's expression did something complicated. "Because I owe you. And because I'm tired of working for them." Elena stared at him, searching for any sign of deception. But for the first time since she'd known him, Marcus's eyes looked honest. "There's a service elevator at the end of the hall. It goes down to the basement. There's a tunnel that leads to the building next door. Go now before—" The door burst open. Victoria stood there, flanked by 2 armed guards. Her smile was gone, replaced with cold fury. "Search her," she ordered. As the guards advanced, Elena made her choice. She bit down on the adrenaline pill and bolted for the door Marcus had mentioned. Chaos erupted through the office. Shouts echoed through the office as Elena dodged grabbing hands and sprinted for the elevator Marcus had mentioned. Gunfire cracked behind her. Vincent had arrived, providing cover. She reached the elevator and slammed the button. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of Marcus standing between her and the guards, his arms outstretched as if to hold them back. Then the elevator descended into darkness, and Elena's real escape began.
The service elevator plunged downward, the ancient cables groaning in protest. Elena braced herself against the metal walls, her pulse hammering as adrenaline coursed through her system. The pill Vincent had given her sharpened her senses. Every flicker of the failing light bulb, every squeal of the elevator's descent registered with painful clarity. The elevator jerked to a stop. The doors opened onto pitch darkness. Elena fumbled for her phone, activating the flashlight. The beam revealed a concrete corridor lined with rusted pipes. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped with metronomic precision.
Marcus's words echoed in her mind. There's a tunnel that leads to the building next door. She ran. The corridor branched left and right. Elena chose left instinctively, her shoes splashing through stagnant puddles. Behind her, muffled shouts and the metallic clang of the elevator doors being forced open spurred her forward. A rat scurried across her path as she rounded a corner. The beam of her flashlight caught a faded yellow sign, "Exit," with an arrow pointing to a metal door nearly obscured by cobwebs. Elena shoved through the door just as gunfire erupted behind her. A bolt ricocheted off the doorframe as she tumbled into the tunnel beyond. The air here was thick with mildew and something more acrid, chemicals left to rot decades ago. The tunnel stretched before her, the darkness so complete her phone's flashlight barely penetrated 10 feet ahead. Vincent's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Elena, status." "They're chasing me," she gasped, sprinting down the tunnel. "I'm in the—" A burst of static cut off her words. She tapped the earpiece frantically. "Vincent? Vincent?" Silence. Either she'd lost signal in the underground maze, or... Elena pushed the thought away and ran faster. The tunnel ended at another door, this one newer, with an electronic keypad glowing faintly in the dark. Locked. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps as she turned back the way she'd come. Footsteps echoed in the distance, growing louder. She was trapped. Then she saw it. A maintenance ladder bolted to the wall, leading up to a grate in the ceiling. Without hesitation, Elena climbed, her muscles screaming in protest. At the top, she shoved against the grate with her shoulder. Rust flaked away as it gave slightly but didn't budge. The footsteps were closer now. She could hear voices. "Check the door. Spread out. She can't have gone far." Elena braced her back against the tunnel wall and kicked the grate with both feet. Metal screeched as it flew open. She hauled herself up just as a flashlight beam swept across the space below. The crawl space above was cramped, the air thick with dust. Elena pulled the grate back into place as quietly as possible and lay still, barely daring to breathe. "Nothing down here," a male voice said below her. "Check the other branch." As the footsteps receded, Elena allowed herself a shuddering breath. She crawled forward on elbows and knees, the space so tight her back scraped against pipes and wiring. After what felt like an eternity, another grate appeared ahead. This one opened into a janitor's closet. Elena lowered herself down silently, pausing to listen at the door before cracking it open. The hallway beyond was empty, the walls lined with framed corporate artwork. She'd made it to the adjacent building. Her phone showed one bar of signal. She dialed Vincent with trembling fingers. No answer. A text appeared from an unknown number. "They have your friend. Come to the loading dock alone if you want him to live." Elena's blood ran cold. She typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "The only ally you have left. 10 minutes. The phone went dark. The loading dock behind the building was deserted except for a single figure leaning against a delivery truck. As Elena approached, the man turned, and her breath caught. Marcus. His left eye was swollen shut. His lower lip split. He held his ribs as if breathing hurt. He rasped, "You came." Elena kept her distance. "Where is Vincent?" He spat blood onto the pavement. "Victoria's people took him. They're going to kill him unless—" "Unless what?" Elena demanded. "Unless I surrender? Go back to being your victim?" Marcus shook his head. "Unless we stop them, together." Elena laughed bitterly. "Why would I ever trust you?" "Because I just saved your life, and because I know where they took Vincent, and David." That got her attention. "David's alive?" "For now." Marcus dug keys from his pocket and tossed them to her. "They're at Victoria's estate. I'll tell you how to get in, but you'll need to move fast." Elena stared at the keys in her hand. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus met her gaze, his one good eye startlingly clear. "Because I remember who I was before they got their claws in me. And today I chose to remember again." A car screeched around the corner, headlights blinding them. Marcus shoved Elena behind the truck as gunfire erupted. "Go!" he shouted. "Take the truck! The address is in the GPS!" Elena hesitated only a second before sprinting for the driver's seat. As the engine roared to life, she caught one last glimpse of Marcus standing in the open, drawing fire away from her. Then she was speeding into the night, the recording device in her jacket containing enough evidence to destroy the network, if she lived long enough to use it.
The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as Elena sped down the winding road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. The GPS displayed the route to Victoria's estate, a sprawling property 30 miles outside the city. The recording device in her jacket pulsed like a second heartbeat, filled with damning evidence. But none of that mattered if she couldn't save Vincent and David. David. The betrayal still burned like acid in her chest. His smile, his touch, all a lie. Yet Marcus's words echoed in her mind. They took David too. Had he been a prisoner all along? Or was this another trick? Elena tightened her grip on the wheel. She couldn't trust anyone, not Marcus, not David, not even Vincent if he'd been compromised. The truck's radio crackled to life with a burst of static. "Elena!" She flinched. The voice was distorted, mechanized. "Turn left at the next junction. Avoid the main gate." "Who is this?" she demanded. No answer. The radio cut out. Elena exhaled sharply. She had no choice but to follow the instructions. The estate loomed ahead, a fortress of iron gates and security cameras. She parked the truck in a dense thicket of trees and approached on foot, her body humming with tension. The recording device was still active, capturing everything. A rusted service entrance stood partially hidden by overgrown ivy. The key Marcus had given her fit perfectly. The door creaked open into a dimly lit basement. The air smelled of damp concrete and something metallic. Blood. Elena's breath hitched as she stepped inside. A hand clamped over her mouth. She reacted instantly, driving her elbow back into her attacker's ribs. A grunt of pain, then a familiar whisper. "Elena, it's me." Vincent. She whirled around. His face was bruised, his left arm hanging limply at his side. But he was alive. "How'd you—" "Escaped," he rasped. "But we don't have much time. They're moving David to a secure room upstairs." Elena's pulse spiked. "Is he really one of them?" Vincent hesitated. "It's complicated." Before she could demand answers, footsteps echoed above them. Vincent pulled her into the shadows as two armed guards descended the stairs. Their radios squawked. "Search the perimeter. She's here." Elena held her breath as they passed. Vincent motioned for silence, then led her through a maze of storage rooms. At the far end, a narrow staircase led upward. "Third floor. Victoria's private office. That's where they'll take him." Elena nodded. They moved like ghosts through the house, avoiding patrols. The opulence of the estate was jarring. Crystal chandeliers, gilded mirrors, all funded by stolen lives. At the top of the stairs, Vincent stopped her. "Before we go in, you need to know something." His voice was grave. David wasn't lying about everything. Elena stared. "What?" "He is a doctor, but the network forced him into this. They have his sister." The revelation hit her like a punch. Vincent continued. "He was supposed to monitor you, but he started feeding us information instead. That's how I found you in the factory." Elena's mind reeled. Had David been playing both sides, or was this another layer of deception? A scream cut through the silence. David's voice. Elena didn't hesitate. She sprinted down the hall, Vincent at her heels. Victoria's office door was ajar. Inside, David was strapped to a chair, his face bloodied.
Victoria stood over him, a syringe in hand. You were supposed to control her, not fall for her. David spat blood onto the Persian rug. Go to hell. Victoria raised the syringe. Elena burst in, gun raised. A weapon Vincent had slipped her in the basement. Let him go. Victoria froze, then smiled. Elena, I knew you'd come. The room was a standoff. Vincent covered the door, his own weapon trained on Victoria. Elena's finger hovered over the trigger. It's over. The recording has everything. The factory, the names, the money trails. The police are already on their way. Victoria's smile didn't waver. You think this ends with me? The network has branches you can't even imagine. Maybe, Elena said, but we'll burn them down one by one. A gunshot rang out. Victoria crumpled, a dark stain spreading across her blouse. Elena whirled around. Marcus stood in the doorway, smoke curling from his pistol. His face was ashen, his breathing ragged. Had to even the score. He gasped. Then he collapsed. Elena rushed to him, but it was too late. The wound in his chest was fatal. His one good eye met hers. Get out before reinforcements come. Vincent was already cutting David free. David staggered to his feet, his gaze locking onto Elena's. The truth hung between them, unspoken, raw. No time for words. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance. Elena grabbed David's hand. Run.
The rain lashed against the car windows as Elena sped toward the estate, the coordinates from Marcus's dying words burning in her mind. David slumped in the passenger seat, his breathing shallow. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage on his side. You shouldn't be here, he gritted out. They'll kill you on sight. Elena's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Then it's a good thing they think I'm dead. The estate gates loomed ahead. No guards. Too quiet. Vincent's voice crackled through the earpiece. Thermals show 6 hostiles inside. Victoria's in the east wing. She's not alone. Elena killed the engine. David, can you walk? He grimaced, but nodded. They moved like ghosts through the manicured hedges. The security system was down. Lena's work, if she was still alive in there. The first guard died quietly, Elena's knife finding his throat before he could scream. The second spotted David and froze, just long enough for Vincent's silenced round to take him out. Then all hell broke loose. Alarms blared. Elena sprinted up the grand staircase as bullets chewed the marble behind her. David covered her flank, his movement sluggish but precise. At the top, Victoria waited. She stood framed in the doorway of a lavish study, a pistol dangling carelessly from her fingers. Behind her, a young woman, Lena, was chained to a chair, her face bruised but her eyes blazing. Elena Rodriguez, the cockroach that wouldn't die, Victoria purred. Elena raised her gun. Let her go. Or what? You'll shoot me? Then you'll never find the others. She gestured to a laptop on the desk. The entire network's client list, every mark, every operative, every bank account. A trap. It had to be. David lunged first. Victoria's shot went wide as he tackled her. They crashed through the glass coffee table, blood spraying on Persian rugs. Elena rushed to Lena, snapping the cuffs with a hairpin. Robert Kim, he's... The window exploded inward. Vincent took the shotgun blast to his chest. He fell without a sound. Robert Kim stepped through the smoke, his tailored suit untouched by the carnage. Enough theatrics. His gaze locked on Elena. You want the network? Here I am. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. The laptop screen flickered. A countdown. 00, 30, 00, 29. Robert smiled. Choose.
Elena shot the laptop. The bullet sparked through the motherboard just as Lena yanked the hard drive free. Robert's smile died. He snarled. Chaos erupted. David wrestled Victoria against the bookshelves. Lena jammed the hard drive into her boot as Elena charged Robert. They crashed through the balcony doors onto the rain-slicked terrace. 30 feet below, the Thames churned. Robert pulled a knife. Elena barely dodged, feeling the blade graze her ribs. She countered with a brutal elbow to his throat. He staggered, and she kicked his legs out from under him. For a heartbeat, he hung suspended over the railing. Elena saw the moment he realized no last-minute salvation, no clever escape, just the fall. Then he was gone. Inside, Victoria had David pinned, her pistol pressed to his temple. She screamed, "Drop it, Elena!" Lena moved like lightning. The fire extinguisher hit Victoria's head with a sickening crunch. The woman dropped mid-sentence, her eyes rolling back. Silence. Then the siren started. 3 months later. The headlines called it the takedown of the century. Victoria Sterling arrested. Robert Kim presumed dead. Over 200 network operatives rounded up globally thanks to Lena's decrypted files. Vincent survived, barely. He left the hospital with a cane and a new mission. Victoria had protectors. I'm going to find them. Elena stood with David and Lena outside the newly opened Safe Horizon Center, a refuge for scam survivors. Reporters shouted questions, but she ignored them, watching instead as the first group of women entered, their steps tentative but hopeful. David's hand found hers. What now? Elena smiled. Now we live. Somewhere in the crowd, a camera flashed. The light caught on the simple gold key pendant around her neck, Margaret's final gift. A reminder. Not all monsters were gone, but neither was she. And here we've come to the end of the story. Thank you so much for listening all the way through from part 1 to part 5, the final part. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this story? Until next time, check out other stories on this channel. I love you for real. Bye.